Hello, hello. Welcome back, everyone. Happy Friday. Let me get the chat connected here. It was doing some weird things earlier with the Q&A, and I checked. It looks like you all can't see it. It's just on my end, so I'm hoping it won't be a problem. I don't know why they've changed this just for me. Oh, weird. Actually, it even looks different when I connect it. So you should hopefully see a Q&A box up there that says put your questions there. On my end, it was like every single time I toggled to the Q&A, it kept like at the bottom of the chat putting a copy of the Q&A message. So like half of my screen for messages was just myself doing the Q&A post, and I couldn't see any chats. But I refreshed it and it looks like it's fixed. So there you go. Hopefully that all will work out fine. I feel like it's been a while. Hopefully y'all are doing well. Hello, hello. I'm sure we have some new people in here. So before we get too far into it, let me make sure I do the usual spiel that we do for these streams. So first of all, this stream is 18 plus only. If you are not at least 18, please do not be here. That is for your safety, my safety, everyone's safety, because I am not a therapist, any kind of educator that works with children, so it is not appropriate for me to give any kind of advice to minors. So if you're a minor, don't be here. Come back when you're 18. It's not because I think that you're like stupid or like don't know anything or like, you know, it's not ethical. So we don't mix those spaces to keep everyone nice and happy and safe. We also, completely unrelated, have a little bandita camera. As you can see right now, she is making herself a bed with one of the blankets, and she's licking it because she does that for some reason. I don't know why. She does. That's one of her hobbies, is she likes to lick the blanket and then pull it somewhere else. I don't know. Yeah, I'm talking about you, huh? Oh, that whistle noise is back. I'm pretty sure it's this cable. And for some reason, when I jiggle it, it fixes it, and I don't. And then I sit down and it's back. And I stand up and it goes away. I don't know. Alright, let's see if that... I heard it for a second. Okay, I think it's actually gone. Hopefully that's going to be it for the stream. It's also like weirdly bright. Oh, of course now I've actually like accidentally moved the camera a little bit. You can see that. There we go. It's actually like weirdly bright. It was a clear blue sky today. That never happens in Portland. But as I was saying, please read the rules down below. That will help you know how to interact in this chat. We normally have a pretty good little audience here. We have a couple of mods, so please listen to them. Please be respectful. This is a Q&A, so the whole point of the stream is that you all ask questions and I answer them, and I also ramble about things that are related topics and have been on my mind as just the stream goes along, and it's usually a pretty fun time. We have lots of different perspectives here. I don't know everything about everything, so it is really nice to hear from other people in our community and hear their perspectives on things. But in general, please don't spam the chat with questions. If you answer the same question or ask it like 10 times in a row, I'm not going to answer it because that's rude. You know, I don't have 100,000 concurrent viewers or anything. Like, if I see your question, I will answer. I usually go in the order that questions come in. You can also use our Q&A feature up here that is highlighted as a white box. That basically puts your question in a special area where I will know that it's a question. You can put it in the regular chat. The advantage of using that feature is it keeps your question anonymous so other people can't see it, and it doesn't show up on the main replay of the stream or in the chat. So if you want to ask something a little bit more privately, that's a good way. But if you want maybe additional perspectives or have it be more of an open conversation, asking it in the regular chat does also work as well. So yes, please be polite, please be nice. Yes, it's not even so much that I'm trying to move the fight from Twitter to stream. It's just that as sort of a result of the discourse on Twitter, I am like writing a video about this, and I've actually been meaning to revisit the topic of anal on my channel because I don't think I've talked about it in 8 years. And you know, we know new things now. We have additional information we did not have, and that I didn't have at least 8 years ago on the topic. But because it's explicitly about sex in the way that YouTube sort of works now, I think it's like a pivot to take a drama thing and to make it an educational thing about like anal sex and anatomy and, you know, pleasure and how to do things in a safer way, which I all think is really, really important. But these days on YouTube, I feel like I can't really make a video that's just like anal sex 101 the way that I could 6, 7, 8 years ago. Just the algorithm is different. Like what kind of content YouTube promotes or restricts is different. And I'm like 99% sure that if I just made a video that was like anal sex 101 and that was the whole thing, it would be age restricted. But if I can have a 40-minute long video where 20 minutes of it is talking about a drama thing that happened on Twitter, and then I can parlay that into 20 minutes of education about anal anatomy and pleasure, then I can sneak in the back door, pun intended, in that particular instance. I can sneak in education in a way that hopefully probably won't be just decimated by the algorithm and the whims of YouTube censorship. So that's kind of my plan. But obviously, you know, it is something that's been on my mind a lot. It's very strange to me to coexist in spaces online where I feel like we're just thinking about the wrong stuff, like way too often. Like we're in a post Roe v. Wade getting overturned society. Everywhere on the internet is increasing censorship. The government is doing all kinds of weird stuff that's probably gonna be bad. It doesn't even matter what country, right? UK, Australia, Europe in general, America, even Canada too. Like privacy stuff is essentially being foisted upon us, or anti-privacy stuff is being foisted upon us. And for some reason, instead of talking about, I don't know, how the patriarchy and the carceral surveillance state are interconnected, young radical feminists are essentially getting incel pipelined into discussing how anal sex is inherently abusive. Like if you took a radical feminist from the 80s who's no longer with us and dropped her into the modern age and then told her what feminist energy is currently being cultivated towards in internet spaces, I feel like they would probably be horrified. They would be like, wait, so you guys aren't like organizing stuff? There's no like mutual aid? You know, like, what are you? So you're arguing on this thing called the internet with people you don't know, telling them that they're being abused because they've had pleasurable anal sex with their husband. Just imagining that conversation is insane. It's dumb, and there were naturally dumber arguments on the subtweets. I think that's part of why. Actually, it was funny. I started that day thinking I was going to deep dive into the Lindy West polyamory discourse that's been going on. And I was in the middle of sort of gathering up some tweets and screenshots and links to articles so that I could start like reading through things in some kind of chronological order. And then as I was doing that, the anal sex discourse started. And I was like, oh, Jesus. Because I feel like it's connected to something I've talked about in previous videos, right? Where we've talked about things like, you know, radical feminists who are against kink in general or anti-CNC discourse. This is just the natural progression of what was always going to happen, right? Like we've seen this playbook before. It's happened before. You start with conversations around, consensual non-consent is, I think I saw a tweet that said something to the effect of like, the simulated rape community is what they call it derisively, right? The BDSM community is the simulated rape community. They're all disgusting and awful. They're damaging to, women in the feminist movement. And then eventually that moves into rough sex acts, right? That moves into like choking and hair pulling and stuff like that. And then it moves into, let's say, historically non-normative for heterosexual people sex acts. So primarily women giving oral and receiving anal penetration. And then because there's no nuance online anymore, that somehow ends up like, they talk about how like no woman likes anal. Like that's just the plain fact of it that I saw over and over and over again, that I had confirmed directly to me, like, is this what you mean? Because this sounds like what you're saying. Or do you know you're being hyperbolic? And they're like, yes, absolutely. No woman really likes anal. It's inherently abusive because of this laundry list of reasons. Like, not even, first of all, it's homophobic for multiple reasons, but one that people don't mention is it's homophobic because it erases bisexual and lesbian women that do anal with each other. It's trans-misogynist because then it also is erasing women that have anal sex primarily because that's like the way that they can be receptive sex partners in that part of their body. Like this very weird stuff where it's like, oh no, there's just no, like there's no room for nuance. And then you get people who come by and say, no one's talking, like they are. You're claiming no one is saying this, and then I have 100 examples of people being like, yes, this is absolutely what I'm saying. Or even that it's okay to simplify it that way. Like, as long as most women don't like anal, it's okay to say no woman likes anal. That's like not language has like why have any modifiers? Why have any distinction between words? Why have modifiers like some, many, most, all? Why use any of those? Why include those in the English language if they have no function? So frustrating. Yes, the crowns are for, I believe, people who are chatting frequently. Yeah, that class, bodily autonomy for all women. Well, not that. What's wrong with you? Yeah, and it's frustrating because I genuinely, like, as an aspec person, I have very much experienced sexual coercion and pressure from partners to do sex acts or versions of sex acts that I absolutely don't want to do, that I don't get any pleasure out of, that I don't enjoy doing. And it's not even that sometimes it's because of that specific partner, but a lot of times it's just because it's like not my thing and I don't want to do it with anybody ever. And I don't want other people to experience that. And I would like to have that conversation of like, how do we navigate sexual pressure and coercion? I'm sort of less invested in where it comes from. I think people will sort of blame pornography for it. I think in a world where we have more robust sex education, that's probably way less of an issue, if it's even an issue at all. We just don't teach people, like, I never learned, most people my age never learned, even to this day, most people probably actually have worse sex ed in a lot of states than what I had, 15 years ago, about sexual health and boundary setting and limits. Like, there was essentially half of 1 hour-long class that I did for, like, health class in probably freshman year of high school, where they talked about, like, it's okay to say no to stuff. And that was essentially it. And it was in the context of saying no to PIV sex, right? Because of the risks of PIV, preventing pregnancy and, teen pregnancy and abortion and all of that. And if we had a more robust sex ed, as they have in other countries, provably you have less issues with sexual pressure and coercion because you have a society where that kind of thing is the standard, as opposed to a thing that people are still learning how to do well. And I would just love to have a conversation about, like, yes, I do think there are a lot of people who are vanilla that are pressured to do things that they don't want to do that are kinky. Like, whether that's rough sex stuff or bondage, I think you know, whether anal or oral is kinky is like probably a no at this point. But I mean, I think it can, like, it's a spectrum. Like there's anal and oral sex that are like very, very, very vanilla, and ways of doing oral and anal that are like very, very kinky, right? So it just depends. And regardless, like there are people who get pressured to do various types of vanilla, kinky, or somewhere in between type sex acts. And I would like to have that be the center of the conversation, as opposed to having just completely inane arguments about anal sex being inherently abusive because apparently no woman actually likes anal. But you find one woman who likes anal, it disproves the whole argument. We just gotta find one. We gotta find one woman on a survey somewhere who says that she unironically loves anal. And actually, I know women who love anal so much that they do it instead of vaginal. Like they straight up do not have vaginal sex in their relationship because that's how much they prefer anal. Even though they could do it. It's not like a DS thing. And they just are like, yeah, anal just feels so much better. Like, why the fuck would I not do it? Like, it's crazy. For me, one roadblock is normalizing the notion that people say yes to things. So if you like a thing, say yes. I think that is probably part of it that gets lost in this conversation is, you know, I think there's a lot of valid critiques of the pop cultural mainstream conversations that happened 5-10 years ago around sex positive feminism and you know, talking about like, you know, encouraging women to use vibrators or whatever. But I think that one part of it that has been lost now, and I don't think was emphasized enough then, is part of having a meaningful no is also being able to have a meaningful yes that is based on your own individual desires and preferences, and having opportunities to learn what that thing is. Yeah, my ex preferred it. Yeah, lots of people do. Lots of people do. We are banning quantifiers. Predicate logic is a tool of the devil. Embrace only propositional logic. Fuck it, I guess. Like, imagine a world where, oh fuck, my stream. Oh no. Why is my stream health so bad? What's going on? Oh, Xfinity better not be doing some bullshit today. I don't know why they decide they're going to do network stuff on Friday sometimes, but hopefully, I think I'm still connected. Let me double check. I had my phone set up to look at the chat because I wasn't sure if that was going to actually work for the stream or not. Hopefully, we're still connected.
Imagine a world.
Whoa. All right, I'm sorry. I briefly blasted you all in the ears with echoes. Hopefully that is fine. You know that even with evidence to the contrary, they'll be like, no, she doesn't count, but because she's been coerced into it, basically erasing her autonomy. Oh no, that is absolutely it, right? Like the goalpost moving is oftentimes centered around, well, she doesn't really like it because she's only into it because her boyfriend does it. Oh, well, you're saying this is a woman who doesn't have sex with men. Well, they're only doing it because they're copying men. Oh, well, they like never even watched porn before, so how could they be copying men? Well, they're still using a phallic object to do it, and it's still centering penetration, and that's inherently serving the male agenda. And he just on and on and on. Like, I know that people who believe that can't be convinced, right? It's like when you're having a political discourse, you're not trying to convince the people on the very, very far right? You're not trying to convince the Nick Fuenteses of the world. They're not going to move from their positions. They're not open to being moved in their positions. They are where they are going to be. But there are people that haven't settled on their ideas yet, who are sort of listening to this conversation, this dialogue happen, that could be swayed one way or another because they don't realize that maybe they're taking things on face value that they actually don't really know are true or not. Like a big part of this is saying that, no woman really likes anal because inevitably anal sex always damages your body. And people just say that out of nowhere, no citation, no medical evidence. And then in order to support that, they'll like link to a journal that says that there's a 3% higher likelihood of contracting HIV if you're doing anal instead of PIV with an HIV positive person. And it's like, that is very, very, very far from saying anal sex is always inherently going to damage your body. But if you can demonstrate that actually this thing that they're using as a core part of the argument isn't really true, and that's maybe something that you're emotionally invested in, is this fear of damage for an act that maybe you've never done before, and you can learn that isn't true, maybe you're more likely to be like, hey, actually, like, I'm not going to believe this other argument because it's clearly not supported by any evidence, or the evidence that is supporting it is being way, way, way overstated. It isn't actually saying what people are claiming that it does. And that's what I'm interested in. And also just like, I think general, using this what I was talking about as like a general conversation for discussions around like anal sex and how to do it in a safer way and misconceptions about anatomy and the way that we discuss anatomy and pleasure, because we aren't given a lot of good tools around that, and hopefully maybe giving people some ways of understanding how this all works. Like I had a post where I talked about how women can come from anal, and there was like, I understand that that's not a thing that especially like vanilla people are familiar with a lot of the time, but I was shocked by how many people are like, is she lying or not? Is this true? And it's like, yes, like this isn't like, and not even in like hypno kink, you've been like progressively conditioned into coming from this atypical experience, but just regular vanilla people are able to climax from anal penetration. Like, it does happen. Some people like it. So clearly there is a lack of information, and the reason there is because of homophobia and the fact that people primarily associate anal intercourse with gay men. And so because of that, there's like, I didn't learn anything in school about anal penetration. The only thing I learned is like, definitely say no to it. Don't put things in any hole. They're all bad. That's essentially what I learned. You will get STIs from all of it, and it will kill you, and you will die. That's what I learned when I was in school. So we talk about PIV from the perspective of, oh, well, this is the one that makes babies. So you have to understand how like reproduction works. But anal and oral are not discussed at all, and certainly not in the context of pleasure and safety outside of things like anal sex being higher risk for HIV transmission. Like, it comes up more in a conversation on STIs and HIV, but nothing outside of that, because heaven forbid we teach people about how like different forms of sex work. And also, this is something that I know has been damaging to people, because I know lots of people who, because they were not taught in school or from adults in their lives that they trusted about how to do certain sex acts in a safer way, or how to navigate them, or what would be normal for them, they ended up with damage, not because of the fact that those things are inherently damaging no matter how you do it, but because they didn't have resources, they didn't know who to ask, they didn't even know that they should be asking, and I just think that's something that we need to think about and change. The end. Your school told you that anal was bad. My school didn't even admit that anal exists. Yeah, I know, we were really progressive for a abstinence-only state, for sure. There's also a lot of, depending on your age, there are definitely curriculums that didn't even acknowledge that those things existed. Like, actually, I remember being 15 and learning from a friend that oral sex existed after we'd already done sex ed. And I was like, wait, people do that? I was shocked because it didn't come up, right? But they only would mention anal intercourse for the sake of explaining, like, hey, this is why gay men get HIV, essentially. That was the context of it. But nothing beyond that, which obviously leaves people feeling really scared and is not helpful when you are dealing with the fact that people are going to ask for certain things, or at least, possibly put that on the table. Like, I certainly know that when I was a young person, a lot of people would approach anal as an alternative to PIV if they couldn't get access to birth control or condoms, because, well, this is safer, and then we don't have to worry about having the baby that we're all like terrified of having because of the sex ed that we've had. So, seems like we're missing something. Seems like we are missing something. Yeah, the sex purity culture of it all is intense. You need to only have sex with the intent to have babies, or I could make it woke. Yeah, there was somebody who said, like, we need to cope with the fact that the body is designed for heterosexual intercourse. It's like, designed by who? I didn't realize how many feminists were going to be making a, like, divine creator argument, but there's no design plan here. There's just a bunch of cells that are cobbled together because this is mostly functional. There's no grand scheme going on here. It's just, this is how it has worked out, and let me tell you, there are a lot of risks even when doing things with the equipment as quote-unquote designed. So, not sure on that one. Not sure on that one for sure. Yep, that was, I am being serious. That is an almost verbatim quote that actually I saw from multiple people, that the supposed feminists in this argument, which is a shame because I'm a feminist. I'm left wing. Like, I should be on your side. Like, we should not be doing this. We need solidarity, and instead you're arguing with me about how I'm evil because I'm normalizing anal sex. I guess sort of the chaos of nature is a designer of sorts, Twixie. I think that, you know what, I think if we're going to say anything, that might be true, but it's obviously not how they mean it. And of course, if we're going to say X body isn't designed for this, first of all, that's like approaching turf logic on a number of things, right? You know, oh, well, your body wasn't designed for that, so therefore doing other things with it is wrong, or trying to modify it is wrong. But then the other side of it is like, well, but like the mouth wasn't designed for oral, so like, are you saying lesbians shouldn't go down on each other? It doesn't hold up to any scrutiny whatsoever. I grew up in Kansas in the Fundy Baptist Church. Oof, I am sorry. Pretty sure I didn't even hear about anal until I was 20 and leaving the church purity culture influence. Well, I'm glad that you left that influence, because boy howdy is that a dangerous world to be a part of. But I'm not shocked that the Fundy and Fundy Light worlds would not mention anal. Although I do know that there are some very like restrictive religious communities, more like not so much Baptist fundamentalists, but more certain sects of either far wing, what is it? I forget what the name for the fundamentalist Mormons are, but like fundamentalist Mormons and not Mennonites, Amish people. There's actually really, really high rates of all sorts of things that, let's say, would constitute sex crimes happening in that community without people realizing it because they get no education. They just know that putting thing in hole feels good. And they don't think too hard about the hole or what it's doing because they don't know what sex is because no one's taught them. And it's like, oh, this is why we need to talk about this. So people don't put things inside of holes they shouldn't be doing that with. Ugh. No. Yeah. The discourse on Twitter is, and I quote, that anal sex is inherently abusive. Women's anal cavities are not designed for anal sex. The body is designed for heterosexual intercourse. No woman likes anal sex. And doing anal sex only happens because of porn-sick men pressuring women into it. And it's inherently degrading and disgusting to do. And if and when you do it, you will end up destroying your body and have to wear a diaper for the rest of your life because you will have an anal prolapse. That is a summary of about a dozen different tweets that all got between like 10 and 80,000 likes and like millions and millions and millions of views and people agreeing with it. And it is shocking how much of radical feminist discourse, when you look at it, ends up going back to somebody's personal grievance with a sexual activity that they don't like. Whether it's Dorkin herself or modern radical feminists, you hear them talking about things, and you're like, oh, this is just like your opinion, man. Like, this is just based on what you like and don't like, and you think, I tried anal once with my boyfriend and it was icky, so therefore I can't even imagine how anal sex could ever be pleasurable. And there are lots of acts that people do where if you do them with like the right partner or the wrong partner, actually do them with the wrong partner, too much pressure, not relaxed enough, don't know what you're doing, not enough education, it feels awful and horrible, and you can't imagine how it could ever be pleasurable to someone else. And then different setting, more education, right person, desire is there, you're relaxed, you're ready for it, then it's pleasurable, because the human body is weird, and when we do want things and we like them, it feels good, and when we don't want things, it can feel bad. Not always, like people can still experience certain physiological responses to unwanted sexual behavior, but there is a spectrum of responses that are possible. That doesn't mean it's always one way or the other for everyone all the time, obviously, because like not to get all like emo psych on people, but like there's a reason why like sexual arousal exists as a concept. Like there's a reason why we're not just like permanently aroused all of the time. But there's a reason there's an on-off button for that. It's a sort of opinion that only works if you don't go outside and never talk to people ever. It's a possibility. It's a possibility. They do really think about other people's sex lives a bit too much. A historical side note, in Greece and Rome, sex workers would provide anal by default to limit risks for pregnancy. Vaginal sex was on the menu for additional consideration. I mean, I think that's honestly probably even true today for a lot of people. Because, yeah, it's like risk of pregnancy is a very real concern. And there's a lot of people who just decide not to do vaginal sex because that's part of their birth control process. Like in a post Roe world where like maybe your health insurance doesn't cover the one kind of birth control that doesn't make you feel like you're going insane, maybe you decide, well, like anal is fine, actually, let's do that instead. Like there's reasons for it, right? Anyways, yeah. More seriously, regardless of how you phrase design arguments, there's an implicit teleology that's often problematic, especially for philosophical naturalism. Yeah, no matter exactly, like, people would say, oh, well, it's not homophobic because, like, we weren't talking about men until you brought it up or whatever. And it's like, well, it's just based in the language that you're using. Like, it's when you don't realize that, like, secular Christian society, like our society, even though it is secular, is, you know, largely based on secular Christianity. And there's a reason why, like, Sunday is considered to be the end of the week, and why Christmas is a federal holiday, and why our calendar and celebrations are sort of based around either secular or still quasi-religious interpretations of certain holidays. And you don't always realize it's there because it's so natural. You don't even think that you're doing it. And similarly, people don't realize that it's so baked into their brains to talk about sex through the lens of, oh, you know, this is created, this is designed, this is made for this purpose. In reality, the only part of the human anatomy that we know is designed or created, or more accurately, the only thing that we know of that only has a use in regards to sexual pleasure is the clitoral structure. That's the only thing that exists that is exclusively used for sexual pleasure, nothing else. Like whether it's the A spot, the P spot, the G spot, the whatever else, things that either maybe don't exist at all, that we can't definitively prove where it is or what it does or where it comes from or how many people have it, or it has some other kind of secondary reproductive or bodily function that's above and beyond, more prominent than the supposed sexual reason that it's there. So, yeah, men don't have a magical cum button in their ass. That's not what the prostate is. It just happens to also be pleasurable. But I would love to hear. This is actually making an Omegaverse argument. What is the evolutionary advantage of men having a cum button in their ass? So what is that for? Also shocking, not all men actually like it when you stimulate the prostate, or people who have prostates in general. Yeah. And there's a doctor friend of mine who told me that she had a teenage patient who thought butt babies were a thing. Hooray, the American sex ed system. Oh my God. I mean, there are, in the medical literature, really weird things that happen, right? Like embryos implant on people's intestinal tract or on their bladder wall. There are people who have bifurcated vaginal canals or uteri. There are people who have some kind of heretofore unknown connection between either their uterus and their vagina and part of their anal cavity, or something has gone completely messed up for whatever reason, and by some complete unexpected miracle of biology and science, there is for some reason a connection between the anus and the reproductive tract, and that could theoretically lead to somebody who only had anal having a pregnancy, or having, semen enter the fallopian tubes or whatever the fuck. But that's exceedingly rare. Like, I don't even know for sure if there's a case study of that happening in the medical literature where we can definitively prove that no vaginal intercourse ever took place. Also, everything's kind of close together down there. And, theoretically, if you're doing anal and your boyfriend pulls out and he accidentally comes on top of your, inner labia, maybe something could happen. 0.001% chance. But, I've seen those questions on Quora before. I've seen those in various, Ask a Doctor forums, help, I'm 17, my boyfriend and I were doing butt stuff, and he pulled out and accidentally came on my labia. Am I going to have a baby? Frowny face. I'm definitely, it's you can't, scientifically say definitively no, because there is a very, 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 very remote, minute chance that something could possibly happen. But it's probably a no at the same time. Yeah, it's not everyone finds, that's what I find so interesting about this is, part of the argument is, there's a lot of reasons I find it interesting, this is one of them, is, a lot of the argument is, well, anal sex for women is unnatural, but it's fine if men do it because they have this prostate, as they call it, the male G-spot. They don't call it the prostate, they call it the male G-spot. I have, 10 posts, bookmarked, where they never call it the prostate, because it's they don't know what the prostate is. They call it the male G-spot. The men's G-spot is in their ass, and it's that's called the prostate. It makes seminal fluid. That's what it does. That's its job. It's not just a collection of nerve bundles that are designed for sex. It has a very useful purpose. But I've never seen anything that shows how many men like their prostate stimulated. Obviously, for straight men, there's a lot of people that just don't ever try it. I certainly know lots of people in my life, men of all different ages, lots of AMABs who are non-men of various types that do not they have tried, they do not like prostate stimulation for whatever reason. Is not their thing. They don't want to do it. They don't have any stigma associated with being a bottom. They bottom for other things. They like bottoming for other things. But this thing is not a sensation that they enjoy. In the same way that, not all women like cunnilingus. Not all women like any kind of penetration. Not all men like receiving oral sex on their penis. Everybody is different. Not everyone likes everything. And it's very, I don't even know what the word for it is, but it's sort of thinking of men in this sort of animalistic way where all men like all different types of sex acts, and if there's a way to sexually stimulate them on their body, theoretically, as a man, they have to like it. And it's no, there are plenty of people who are men, or people with penises, or people with prostates, that don't like those things being touched or stimulated in various combinations, because everyone's different. Everyone has their own things that they do and don't like. And especially if you're somebody who's older that has an enlarged prostate, I don't even know the details and if it's even safe or not, but that makes sense why some people would not find that enjoyable, especially because it can also be connected to I don't know, probably bladder stuff as well, I imagine. It's very Omegaverse. This feels like a Formspring question. Has Cora taken that niche over? I don't know. I don't remember what the website is, but it could have been Formspring. We're basically, yes, they're basically reinventing Omegaverse. Like the male anus is more like a cloaca. So it's fine that they have anal. I cannot comment if it's caused pregnancy, but the fact that sometimes bodies can have connections where the colon links the vagina, bodies are weird. Yeah, that's definitely, sometimes that happens. Sometimes, listen, the body gets printed out, and sometimes we make mistakes, right? Sometimes people have kidneys that are relatively level with each other. Some people have kidneys that are like one's way higher, one's way lower. Some people only have one kidney. Somebody have all of their organs like mirror flip to the opposite side of their body. Some people have like an extra set of wisdom teeth. Some people have no wisdom teeth. Some people have like all kinds of different things going on with their body that they may or may not know about, because that's how biology happens. It's just we're printing random things, and sometimes evolutionarily it works out and that thing gets perpetuated for the whole species over a long enough period of time. And sometimes one person ends up with a connection between their colon and their vagina, and that's like a one-off thing that doesn't get carried on in the future. It's funnily enough, also, hey Caitlin, glad to see you around, hope you're doing well. But there is also weirdly part of this where people are talking about there being a difference. Oh my god, my stream, I don't know what is going on with my internet today. I'm having issues with my phone internet as well, I'm not sure why. My, like, stream health keeps, like, dropping like crazy, and I don't know what's causing it. As a peak Tumblr degenerate, I fully support the idea of men going into heat and having babies. Well, I think if that's what they want for themselves, more power to them. But there's part of this that's also talking about like the anal new type of dysphoria drop. By the way, it apparently AMAP allegedly, haven't actually found any research to back this up, but like I guess like. It kind of makes sense if you're extrapolating from other things we know about, like body differences and skin thickness and things like that. Theoretically, according to some people, it's okay and it's better that men have anal because they have denser sphincters and thicker anal lining and skin, and so they're less likely to have damage from anal than cis women are, and so therefore that makes them having anal okay. And that also there's a difference in like anal pressure within the anal cavity, and somehow that can also lead to injury or not. I don't know what the causal mechanism for that supposedly is. So you know, if you maybe you know we should do a study and see if you start taking estrogen if it thins out your sphincters or not. It's crazy. Is it common or possible for women or AFABs to feel close to orgasm during anal? Well, unfortunately, I can't directly quote things to you right now because it's not in front of me, but there will be a video about this coming out soon, I promise. The short answer to that question, just as a little aside here, is is that sometimes yes. I don't know how common it is across the board, but it is definitely possible, and it happens. Like, just it happens, whether it's 5%, 30%, it's possible. Oh, thank you, Carol. Yes, Sean is here. Thank you, and thank you, Carol. ADHD estrogen thins out that skin too. Yeah, I did say anal pressure, not in the title, but yes, for some reason, anal cavity pressure is part of this conversation to prove something about something. We're talking about anal, apparently. Still, that's weird. Someone set the DNA generation to roulette mode. Yeah, exactly. I was raised Catholic and was forced to make confirmation as a teen. There was this one event where they talked about abstinence, how oral isn't safe, and that swallowing cum is linked to cancer. Frustrating. Technically, having exposure to unvaccinated people, as somebody who is also unvaccinated, there is a higher risk of oral cancer from HPV infection. But the cool secret thing is that, especially if both of you have gotten the HPV vaccine, that does a really, really good, like upwards of 90+% good, like fantastic vaccine efficiency at eliminating the risk of getting cancer from the vast majority of the most common types of HPV that cause cancer. I think there's like one bigger one that isn't covered by the HPV vaccine, but the two really big ones, which are 16 and 18, which are the highest risk types, are the most common, are covered by the HPV vaccine. And I think it also covers a couple of the wart-causing ones as well. So yeah, they don't want you to know about that. I'm picturing Omegaverse Park a la Jurassic Park. Oh my god. Somebody's written that fan fiction before. That's just I love the human body and all of its strangeness. It's fantastic. It's amazing. What were you able to buy at Bulk Barn this week? Is it the gum? Were you able to buy the soap gum at the Bulk Barn? I would be so excited if you're able to find the gum, the soap gum at the Bulk Barn. I've been thinking about it. Oh, it got filtered? Oh, I don't see anything got flagged, so that must have been YouTube auto-flagged something. I can't see what it is either, so unfortunately I can't tell you. Let me see if it is in... If I can, is it the one that says, I don't know if there's been actual science, but many trans cam girls have reported prolapse happening easier, etc. on hormones? Is it that one? Because I can see that one, but I actually didn't see it in the mainstream. I can only see it if I check, like, all of your comments for some reason. Although, I guess there's a couple words in there that YouTube probably would not be a fan of. But also, I think, like, one thing that's important about this is... I think it's... I am curious about the fact that, like, okay, more trans women sort of anecdotally report prolapse happens more often after you start estrogen. Because I think it is probably true that there is, like, thinner, more delicate skin because of the dominance of estrogen. We know that leads to thinner skin. That's part of what it does. But I don't think we can take something where we're saying, okay, for people who do professional sex work, we can't really extrapolate their rates of, let's say, like anal prolapse or fissures onto the general population, because keep in mind, the general population is having sex on average anywhere from like once a week to like once a month. Like most people, especially in long-term married relationships, are not having very frequent sex of any kind, let alone anal specifically. I'm actually not sure in America. Is there a study that says like what the median amount of sex like per week is in America? I feel like that'd be really, really hard to measure and probably depend a lot on like age group and marital status. Median rate of sex amongst Americans. Let me just see. Let me just a cursory Google search. That's the Institute for Family Studies. So that's probably not great. I feel like this is probably a conservative organization. But maybe it's not. But this is just the first thing that popped up, but I'm not going to look into it any more deeply than that. But there is a quote-unquote sex recession. Americans are having a record low amount of sex. We find that in 1990, 55% of adults aged 18 to 64 reported having sex weekly, according to the General Social Survey. But around the turn of the millennium, the number began to dip. By 2010, less than half reported having sex weekly, and by 2024, of the more than 1,000 men and women queried on this topic by the General Social Survey, that number had fallen to just 37%. Okay, so less than half of people have sex even once a week. So most people are probably having sex on average between like 1 to 4 times a month, maybe, right? That would be the majority of people. So that probably indicates to me that having prolapses from anal is probably not a primary concern that we need to declare anal sex off limits as a result of. Oh my god. Yeah, and then there are also people who are into prolapses specifically, which is a whole other world. Yeah. Yeah, I think the general social survey, I don't think that's from a conservative standpoint, but it is interesting to me that in general, a conservative organization would be like, oh my god, the sex recession. You think that they'd be a lot more worried about people having like premarital sex and being like, look how many more people are waiting to marriage or something. You know, like less people are having ungodly sex, and that's good. Awesome. I hope the patches work out. I know some people like those. And a daily pill or a more regular pill can be more annoying to deal with. Patches, it's like birth control. It's like birth control pills. I could never do that. Patches, a little bit of a better option. You think with how obsessed a lot of government lobbyists and politicians are about controlling the type of sex people have, they would have lots of stats on this? Well, they also just are afraid of talking about sex in general. I think that probably steers a lot of it. Anyways, unless anyone has any remaining queries related to anal, I think let's move on to probably talking about some other stuff. I always want to make sure I'm not missing any important anal questions so I don't get sucked back into it later. Yeah, it's confusing. I would just like it if people could be normal about things. Doesn't seem like intentional prolapse is a good plan. There are some people out there that are porn performers that can do it intentionally on command. I don't know how the fuck that works. It is just a thing that exists, and some people are into it, and I don't know whether it's safe or healthy or what. I'm not sure. Sex recession made me think there's a joke to be made about sex inflation and someone making some shocking fetish discoveries. I'm sure there's an Onion article, something around there. Like I saw a meme the other day that was somebody having a like an inflation fetish, and then it was about like looking at the price of things going up in the grocery store. You put in an anal question? Okay, great. Let me see here. Have you read or heard about the new BDSM manga that came out? It's called Tease Me Harder. I was wondering your opinion about it. I have not heard of that before. It's called Tease Me Harder. Let me put that in my little search bar here. Tease Me Harder. A sweet and kinky romance from Seven Seas Entertainment. It's checking to see if I'm a robot. That's a little suspicious. Oh, it is like it's an actual like published manga thing. I don't know anything about this. I don't have any opinions about it. It's not an art style that I enjoy, but I'm glad that if there's people who like that there's more of it in the world. And it sounds like it could be cute. Sounds like it could be wholesome. I don't have any knowledge of it, so I can't really comment on it more than that. All right, let's go look at the question box real quick. Yes, we do need porn literacy. I think that's probably part of it. I do wonder if there's some level of porn exhaustion out there. Some women is getting used to butt stuff, and now it's all prolapses, double that. Yeah, I mean, okay. So I think, in my personal opinion, what is critical to do above and beyond trying to police, like, this kind of thing is inherently abusive. This kind of thing is bad because of the patriarchy. This kind of thing you can't do because of the inherent power imbalance between a man and a woman in a heterosexual relationship. I think instead of that, because that will inevitably lead you to the conclusion that no kind of sex is okay with a man, except for maybe very, very soft, delicate, non-penetrative types of outer course, right? That's like sort of where it stops. Is like that kind of thing is maybe okay, but really you should only have sex with other women and not try to have anything phallic and not do a penetration, not do this and that. I feel like that's really reductive and it just kind of like fucks with people's brains. What's probably better to do, and what I wish that the messaging of sex positive feminism was actually about, is decentering orgasm, decentering penises, decentering whatever other people are doing, letting go of any kind of desire to be normal, letting go of normalcy as a thing that you use as a guide for your sexual pleasure, just leaving everything on the table and totally open to exploration to find what you individually like and want to say yes or no to. Whether that's various types of penetration, different kinds of stimulation, your role, what positions you do, whether you have sex at all or not. I really, really wish that, because I think that would actually be the solution. I think that if we steered, and I don't think this is anything that's going to happen in my lifetime, maybe in several hundred years from now, we will fix this. But I think moving, at least on a personal level, moving towards breaking down social expectations around sex, moving away from what you think sex has to look like, and genuinely trying to figure out and pursue your own individual pleasure and what that means to you based on your bodily responses and what you find mentally interesting and stimulating is probably the way to go. Now, can that still be influenced by, porn and popular culture and what you think your partner wants? Absolutely yes. But I think the more that in general, not just you, but your partner and society as a whole moves away from trying to have a strict social script to follow, you will be able to come up with your own individual, genuine roadmap of what you find interesting and pleasurable. So I wish for people that they feel like they have the ability to step away from pressure of, well, now that PIV is passe, now you have to do double penetration, you have to be into anal, you have to be into like size queen stuff, you have to be into vibrators, you have to be into receiving oral sex, you have to be into multi-partner sex and threesomes and this and that. Like, for some people, they're going to be into all of that, and for some people, they're just not going to be. That's not going to be their thing ever, any of that stuff. And I hope that one day we can live in a world where it's equally okay for everybody to be into whatever the fuck they're into, as long as it's not hurting anybody else or violating anybody's consent and autonomy. Whether that's like, I only like very like soft, sensual, light outer touches, all the way over into like, yeah, I like double penetration and like being stretched and like whatever the fuck. That should all be okay. That should all be normalized. Who cares? But I think that there probably is an element of this that goes back to, I am tired of being expected to perform a certain way for the people I'm in relationships with, and I can't even have the confidence that what they're asking me to do is based on what they want versus something that's a model that's been passed down to them that they think they need to ask for to prove their masculinity or prove their value as a partner, or that, whatever thing they're worried about. And the more that we can step away from that, I think the better it will be for everyone. And like, yeah, absolutely get it. Because like, I also experience being tired of having expectations foisted upon me, like through dating apps or whatever. Like, even just not even having a conversation with someone, but just seeing the way that people will talk about and approach sex is very off-putting in dating and relationships. Like, being on a dating app and then someone, putting in a winky smiley emoji about how they're awesome at making sure their partner always finishes first, but they talk about it in a way where it's obviously very self-aggrandizing and very ego-focused, or they make sort of slight references to their skill at performing oral or how big their cock is or whatever, and it's like, that to me is an instant no red flag. It's okay if you say that like sex is important to your relationship, okay, great. But I'm not going to want to date someone where their approach to sex is first based on being braggadocious about what you say your physical level of skill is. I think that that's off-putting, and it makes sex about performance and about impressing other people versus mutually discovering with a partner what you both want to be doing together. And that's just not how I want to approach things. I think it's annoying, and I really dislike it when there's also a conflation oftentimes between being kinky and being into certain sex acts that, like, because you're looking for, say, a dom-sub relationship, or you say you like bondage, that has to mean that you're down for a triad relationship or threesomes, or you'd be okay being part of a harem, or that you're gonna want to have oral training and anal training and all kinds of sexual orgasm whatever trainings. It's like, no, actually what I want is someone to be the leader in the relationship and to co-create what that means with me, as opposed to being given a list of sexual favors that I should learn how to be good at for you because you like it. That is really annoying. That is a problem. Again, we can't have that conversation because instead of having nuanced conversations about sexual pressure and coercion and people selfishly approaching sex as an individual, fuck you, I got mine experience, as opposed to a mutual journey, we can't talk about that because we're too busy talking about how anal is inherently abusive, or how no woman likes actually performing oral. They only do it because men like it because of porn. In that category, guys that are, I will go down to you for hours and hours and hours. One, no, you won't. Two, that's good because there's too much of a good thing sometimes. Yeah, not all women like that kind of thing. Also, variety is nice for a lot of people, even if they do like that. And again, it's just fishing in a different pond than what I want to be associating myself with personally. The existence of casual sex implies the existence of ranked competitive sex. That seems to be what they're going for in dating apps. I have heard that saying before. People that have tried to turn sex into a competitive individual sport as opposed to a mutual journey together. And it's that almost sort of individualist capitalist approach, if you will, to sex, as this is a way, like sex as a form of social capital is what I'm trying to say, right? Your sexual ability contributes to your perceived social capital in your mind, as opposed to something that you do because you like someone and you have a mutual overlap of desires and you have attraction to each other and you want to manifest that in various ways. A polycule competitive bracket. That would be funny. Very hurtful, but it would be funny. Also, my dog is being ridiculously cute. Look at her. Look at her on that pillow. That's insane. That shouldn't be allowed. That's too adorable. Yeah, Dorkin only went there. Heterosexual sex isn't consensual because of patriarchal control in society. Honestly, completely unhinged take, but it is out there. Oh yeah, I'm very specifically intentionally referencing Dorkin. Like, I'm aware of what she thinks and what those thoughts have done to influence the current strain of discourse and the current ways of people talking about this that are radical feminists. Is we've already done this. That leads to either you must have soft, delicate, non-penetrative sex with a man, or you choose political lesbianism, and that's worth it because somehow doing those two things will be feminist praxis and help change society, and it's the only way that you can be sure you're not engaging in some kind of untoward patriarchal power imbalance in your relationships, and that's always going to be inherently damaging. And it is just really sad to see so many people that really do truly believe that men only have sex with women as a way of having power over them, that men always use sex as a way to degrade women, that they want to make you filthy and disgusting and they don't respect you, and it's a way of sullying you to have sex with you. And I feel like part of that is maybe how like incels talk about sex and kind of using that as a heuristic for how all men talk about sex. But you can actually find partners who are men that will talk about sex respectfully and treat you respectfully and are not doing it at all because they're trying to defile you non-consensually, or because they secretly or not so secretly hate you and your gender, but just like they've actually done a fair amount of deconstruction around patriarchal beliefs around sex and what they should be getting from relationships with women, or what a relationship with a woman as a man has to look like. And you can't find those people. They really, really do exist. I promise you they exist. I know for sure that they are out there. But in this discourse, men like that are either so rare that they get discounted, or they just don't ever exist at all, period. And there's essentially men that are misogynist and honest about it, and men that are misogynist and lie about it. And they almost kind of prefer the ones that are honest about it to the ones that sort of, I guess in their minds, lie. All right, so I'm tired of feminists who haven't been feminists as long as me, who don't know that they're talking about and telling me that being sexual is somehow an unfeminist act. Yeah, it's just, again, we've been here before. We've had this discourse. We've had this literature. We know what the end conclusion of these arguments are because they already played out 30, 35 years ago. And it turns out those political opinions don't stick around because some women are, in fact, actually heterosexual. I know it's hard to believe. A lot of women are actually straight, and they just will want to continue to have sex with men in certain ways because that's what they enjoy, and they would not be happy in a relationship that didn't involve penetration or was with a woman because that's not what they want. It's not what they're attracted to. And I think we could have a conversation about, generally decentering romance and sex in our lives. I think if we're maybe approaching this from more of a relationship anarchist sort of framework, perhaps, I think that could actually be really interesting to think about the ways that maybe we try to use sex and romantic relationships as a way to meet our otherwise unfulfilled need for community and family. And if we focus more on building community and family and friendships, we'd actually be less inclined to date people that aren't good for us, or to stay in relationships that aren't working, or to center romance and sex above anything and everything else. And we would get our touch needs met, our emotional needs met, our mental needs met by other people around us and by other forms of relationship. And I think that's interesting. But again, we're not having that conversation. We can't do it. It's not happening. And as a dominant that does like consensual power exchange, control and degradation, woo boy, it's weird in my brain. Yeah, I mean, I think if it makes you feel a little weird and uncomfortable, that probably means you have the right perspective on it. Like, it should make you a little uncomfortable to be like, ooh, I want to have power over someone. What does that say about me? And if you're not ever having those thoughts, I think you need to think a little bit deeper about the implications of that. Women have high erotic plasticity, so none of them are straight. Evo psych. I think I've read books before that are not Evo psych that do suggest that women generally have a broader palette of potentially, potentially erotic material, like more compared to men, more women find a wider range of things to be stimulating. That is true. However, women that are attracted to only men are not suddenly going to be attracted to women. Wouldn't that be so easy if that were the case, if we could just modify and change our sexual orientation at will? That would be really interesting and fun, but we can't. Alas. All right, I'm going over to the questions box. now is a good time to put in some questions if you've not already. And thank you all so much for being here on this Friday. I think Phil's Violet said that they left a question for me. I don't see it if you put it in the Q&A, but I am going to get to the ones that are currently in the question box. If you would like me to answer your question, please either put it in the chat or put it in the box up above. Otherwise, I can't promise that I will either see it or answer it. I will try my best, but obviously I'm not going to see everything because chats scroll and move, and YouTube does not keep a record of every single question and chat that I get, so I won't always see them. But actually, let's just start with this one because I was just talking about this. What are your views on relationship anarchy, RA? So RA is relationship anarchy. So my personal experience with relationship anarchy is I have met several people who will say that they are relationship anarchists or that they follow relationship anarchist values. But when you actually get to know them and see inside their relationships, oftentimes it's more or less the same as other types of romantic and sexually focused non-monogamy and polyamory, but with a little bit more separation and emotional distance. And I am usually, if I see someone that is a cishet man who says specifically that they are a relationship anarchist, I am usually a little skeptical of that, because in my personal experience, that has largely meant I do non-monogamy with no emotional strings attached, and I will offload emotional caretaking onto other people, and it's not so much about building a community or deprioritizing sex as a necessary component for an important relationship, or decentering romance as necessary for important relationships, like whatever. It just ends up being like, I don't want to have to care as much about what you think and how you feel, and that I find pretty distasteful. But as a general approach to relationships, as a general thing that people can do for dynamics, I think that it's a great alternative. I know of other people that have done more relationship anarchist type stuff successfully, where they are living their lives in a way where they're not solely focused on a singular primary romantic, emotional, sexual relationship to fulfill all of their needs. And they have untangled, the different threads of sex, romance, friendship, emotional support, life building, so on and so forth, and have maybe say atypical approaches to that maybe you wouldn't see all the time. And I think that's really great. I think just on a purely theoretical level, is like, oh, this is a thing that humans can do. I think it's a good concept. I just wish I don't identify as a relationship anarchist myself. I'm sort of suspicious of people who use it on dating apps, right, and say that they're RA, because I've very rarely found that to be the case when you dig down into it. But as an idea, as a concept, I like it, and I wish that there was more education around it. I wish, and I feel bad that it's gotten misused as a way to just say, I do polyamory, but I don't want to emotionally be your part of your support system, because I don't think that that's great. But yeah, that's sort of my views on relationship anarchy, and let me know if you have more questions about that. Evie, every cis woman I know has had a similar experience with cishet male relationship anarchists, but except in principle, there are good ones. Yeah, I think it's very common. I think especially if you're on the West Coast and you're dating non-monogamously in any of the big cities, whether it's Vancouver or Seattle or Portland or Los Angeles or San Francisco, all of those cities, you have the cishet relationship anarchist who very clearly has usually a primary partner or two, and is usually looking to fill a third sex slot in their life, because they have a high sex drive, but they have low emotional capacity. There's a lot of that. Again, if we want to critique things, I think that there's a lot of room to critique the preponderance of cishet men that have a low threshold for emotional caretaking and a high sex drive, and instead of having 3 relationships with an equal amount of sex and emotional caretaking, they're getting 3 times the amount of sex, but spreading the same thin amount of emotional caretaking amongst all the relationships, right? One really thick layer of this, one very thin layer of this, and that thin layer of emotional caretaking actually doesn't cut it. And I think that's what you get when you have men that are not socialized on how to deal with emotions, just in general. I think that's probably part of the problem with introducing cishet men to relationship anarchy without sufficient support and resources, other than just proposing the concept and label to them, is if you are socialized to not have bandwidth for certain things, or know how to tolerate certain things, or know how to have certain conversations, of course it's going to cause issues, right? Wouldn't that be more solo poly than not having to deal with others' emotions and stuff? One would think. Actually, I think that would be more honest. It's funny, the only people I know who identify as solo poly are women. I think for the opposite reason of, as a woman, it's assumed that you will want to be part of someone's life in this very intimate way. You're going to want to form these very deep emotional life bonds with people. And so to essentially communicate, I don't want that, my life is my own, and maybe I want to do other things independently, but not in a nesting or enmesh sort of way, you have to say that you do solo poly. Whereas I think that similar urge, when it manifests for a lot of cis men, it comes out as relationship anarchy more so. But I think that there's overlap there. I think that you can probably do relationship anarchy and also be solo poly. I think that there's a degree of overlap there, but I don't do either, so I'm probably not the best person to ask about that. This is such a small sample size, but everyone I know who likes the term relationship anarchy is also afraid to mod their own Discord servers. That's such a weird correlation. But I can maybe see the connection there. Yeah. Oh, thank you, Jojo. I'm glad you like my work. Thanks for stopping by. I've met more solo poly than men. I think people sort of assume if a man is polyamorous, he's either implicitly doing solo poly, i.e. he's like dating around, right? Because that's like the traditional masculine thing to do, is you're playing the field, you're dating around, you're leaving your options open. So you don't have to give it a special label because people just sort of assume you're already doing that. Or they very, very clearly have one primary relationship. They may or may not label it as that, but it is their primary relationship, and that's who receives the majority of the emotional caretaking and the focus and the time, and they're looking for other people to date very much on the side or to have sex with because maybe their actual emotional primary partner is too busy or is going through hormonal changes or whatever else, and sort of other partners are a band-aid for that. Speaking strictly from like unhealthy approaches to polyamory and non-monogamy, that's not universally the case. That's the stereotype of why people think about it that way, of like why we don't label it as solo poly. There's definitely lots and lots of people who do even hierarchical polyamory where it's very clear, very upfront, and people know what they're getting into and it's fine. But also the reverse is also true. Like people don't communicate things, or people don't know what their capacity is, and they end up hurting people as a result of that, unfortunately, regardless of what style of polyamory they're doing or how they label themselves. Or whether, honestly, that happens sometimes with monogamy as well. In its own version and ways, right? All right, I guess polyamory is definitely going to be one of the questions of the day. So off topic with what we're talking about, not anymore, but this is poly related. How do you recommend asking about opening up a relationship? I want to stay with my partner, but I want to try something new. So this is probably a really big conversation, and there's lots of ways to do that, I'm sure. I can't think of any book off the top of my head that's about the conversation of opening up with an existing relationship. I've luckily never had to do that because from the time I started being polyamorous, I just was in relationships with already polyamorous people, which made it a lot easier to do. But this is how I would probably approach it. And I think this is, okay, there are a lot of people who say, oh my God, I was so disgusted. My partner proposed opening up the relationship and I could never see them the same way again. So by explicitly asking about it, you are opening up the door to a lot of judgment, a lot of hatred, a lot of resentment, and somebody essentially even considering the idea kind of like it's cheating. Like the fact you could even contemplate it is nauseating to them because it's so outside of what they're comfortable with. So with that in mind, I would probably start by even just trying to suss out what their general opinions are on polyamory and non-monogamy. If they, I don't know how online they are, you know, if they're online, if they're on Reddit, if they use other types of social media, maybe if there's like a viral moment about polyamory that comes up, right? Like, I don't know, maybe they know about the Lindy West thing and you can talk to them that way. You might be able to figure out kind of generally what their opinions are first. Like, do they think that all polyamory is implicitly disgusting and always basically cheating, if that's kind of the level they're on? Or are they like, you know, I haven't tried it before, but like I can see why people are into it, or like people are like too judgmental, or like something vaguely more positive than just polyamory is gross and wrong and only cheaters are into it and it's cheating with extra steps. But if they say that, then you know it's their opinion and then you get to choose, okay, if I want to talk about opening up the relationship, I know it's probably going to blow up in my face and I can prepare for that, right? So either way, you're getting good information about what to do next. So try to sort of like subtly suss out what their general opinions are on open relationships and polyamory. And then, okay, I feel like there's not really an easy way to do this without it kind of sounding like this, but as much as possible, don't try to make it sound like it's this permanently world-altering, relationship-shattering decision that's being foisted upon them, right? Like, don't make it this solemn confessional of, I have something I need to tell you about. I've been holding on to this. I'm really nervous about this. How you talk about it and how you communicate what your emotions are about the conversation cues your partner into how they should be feeling about something. So if you build it up like it's going to be a really big deal, anxiety-inducing, potentially relationship ending, it's going to be a bigger deal, and that can actually make it a bigger issue. Versus, especially if you have a dynamic where you do talk regularly and check in about your relationship often, it makes it a lot easier because then you can say like, hey, I want to like check in about how things are going. I'd love to like talk about how things are for you in this relationship and just like check in and see where things are at. And then that's a good time when you're talking about what you really like about your relationship and where things are going and like what things are working really well. That makes for a more natural segue into whatever form of open relationship you're considering, right? And I would be honest about what that is. Like, I wouldn't do a bait and switch where you say like, oh, I'm interested in like, you know, finding a third for a relationship, or I'm interested in trying a threesome sometime. What you really mean is you want to date other people, right? So like, be honest about what you're looking for rather than baiting and switching from like maybe an easier to accept option into a less easily able to be accepted option. So let's say that what you're looking for is you are interested in finding a kink partner to do certain sex things with, or certain kink things with, that your other partner like isn't into. So you might approach that by saying, you know, like, I'm so happy things are going really well for us. I'm so excited about where our relationship is going. Something else that I'm sort of curious about potentially exploring with you is, you know, me potentially looking, or us potentially looking for like another partner to explore with. Have you ever like thought about that before? And again, talk about it really open and honestly. Be very clear about what you're actually looking for. But I think if you can really frame it as this is an us thing, going through this together because we both want it, that's very, very different than I need this, I have to have this in a relationship, if you can't do this, I'm leaving you, right? Keeping your existing dynamic centered, I think, like long-term in polyamory is like not the greatest thing to do, but like when you're first opening up an existing monogamous relationship, even just entertaining the possibility, emphasizing that this is going to happen when both of you consent to it, if that happens, I think is very important. And then just, again, seeing how they react, seeing how that goes, and if they're open to it, then you have a further conversation about, like, the timeline for this, or, you know, what exactly you'd be looking for, or whether or not they want that on their end, and, you know, what that would look like, how it might affect your relationship. And I think there's always going to be questions from especially somebody who's not into the idea for themselves on the other side about, you know, are they not good enough for you? Why can't they satisfy you? Why blah, blah, blah. And that insecurity is going to be present for a lot of people. And I think it's tactful as a caring partner to be sensitive to that and be aware of it. But it also doesn't have to dominate the conversation or like dominate your choices. And I think there's a balancing act between being sensitive to people and hiding what your needs are because you're afraid of hurting the other person. And like definitely emphasize what you like about your connection, how attracted you are to them, how attached to them you are, how you want to keep building and growing this relationship. This isn't a replacement. This is in addition to something that's already really positive and fulfilling. You like have always wanted to explore this, and you feel safe and comfortable enough with them to be secure enough with them to potentially try something that you've wanted to do. Right, so I think that's probably how I would talk about it, and then just be prepared for a lot of conversations. But this is really messy, I'm not gonna lie. This is not an easy conversation. I think it's very easy to either end up accidentally pressuring somebody into saying yes to something that they don't really want to say yes to for the sake of maintaining a relationship. I think it's really easy to minimize what your desires are, and it's also very possible that it could just blow up in your face and the person isn't into it at all. But if you know that you absolutely want to try some kind of opening up in the relationship and you wouldn't be happy without that being there, then I think it's worth taking the risk. And if it doesn't work out with this person, then you know going forward, maybe, hey, I should look for a relationship where being open is okay from the start. And that will hopefully help you find the right path. What is the Lindy West thing? I don't even know who Lindy West is or how it relates to polyamory. So, Lindy West is a feminist writer who recently came out with a book, one of many probably kind of bad polyamorous memoirs that have been released in the last several years. And it's called, I believe, Adult Braces. And the internet has absolutely blown up because there were some articles that came out talking about passages of the book. And the book is about her journey into polyamory with her husband. And there's a lot of weird dynamics going on in that. She is a white woman married to a black person. And she's also like a fat woman on top of it, and admittedly herself has struggled with self-esteem and feeling desired by people. And so more or less it comes across like she was forced/pressured into polyamory despite very, very much not really wanting that from her marriage or from her relationship because of what her spouse wanted. And it comes across like she's never really truly been happy about it, and also that her spouse does not treat her particularly well and shows a lot of emotional favoritism towards the second relationship, which is with a different woman who is much skinnier and much more conventionally attractive. And just the difference from what people have seen from blog posts and social media postings, there is a very different dynamic between those two relationships that does not come across well. And naturally, people critiqued this from various perspectives, some of which were legitimate, some of which were less so. Like, I think there is, hey, let's talk about people being forced or pressured into polyamory that they don't really want. I think also a conversation around people being able to choose things that are challenging for them and that they find difficult at first doesn't make the thing bad. I can't tell from subsequent postings and conversations exactly, but I don't get the impression that this was like, oh, this was really hard at first and now I feel really secure and okay. It comes across like, I'm still really insecure about this. I don't really like it. I'm convincing myself it's okay when it's not, is the energy that I think a lot of people are picking up on. But there was a very strong reaction from her spouse, on blog posts, in emails to writers that ranged from her spouse being very outwardly angry and aggressive towards people that were writing about them, and Lindy West being very, very defensive, essentially saying some very liberal feminist stuff about how actually it's colonialism as a white woman to try and impose, a monogamous marriage onto my spouse, even though we started as being in a monogamous relationship. Like, making the argument that, I'm as a white woman, it's my responsibility to do painful decolonialism in my relationship, which is like, ooh, I can see why you think that based on your political beliefs, but also you are like allowed to say no to this if you don't want it. And I think that it oftentimes comes across when I'm reading it as a fear of losing this marriage, because without this marriage she wouldn't have anybody. And the fear of being alone is greater than the discomfort of this relationship dynamic that has repeatedly made her unhappy. Also, probably the biggest thing is that she solo financially supports not only her spouse, but also her spouse's other partner, because neither one of them have a consistent income. And also, she has financially supported her spouse through paying child support for 2 existing children from a previous relationship. So from the outside looking in, based on how she's talked about it, it comes across as extremely parasitic. Very, very, very parasitic. And that's just ugh. It's there's no other way of talking about it. It's very ugh. Like, could it work? Could it be okay? Maybe. But there's a lot of compounding factors here that also range from things like essentially talking about some kind of weaponized incompetence, like when my spouse is sick, they don't know how to tell me what's wrong with them, and they never keep me up to date on how they're doing and what they're feeling and what's going on for them. But my partner's other partner will do that for them, so actually them dating somebody else is good because I have another woman to help manage my spouse, because they can't do it for themselves. I don't know if their spouse is neurodivergent or not. It is entirely possible. That could be part of it. And I don't want to discount that. But again, it comes across like, so the benefits for polyamory to you are, in one column, another woman manages my spouse for me. In the negative column, I'm paying for like 4 different people's lives. I get to like be party to this emotional relationship that's deeper than the one that I get to have with my husband. I get to deal with the insecurity of being the fat woman married to a man who's, primarily sexually interested in a much skinnier woman. Like, on and on and on and on down the list. And it's just hard to I've never been in that situation before. I don't know what it's like, but there are things that are similar to that I have seen in my personal life where it's like, ooh, you just have not gone through the checklist to realize for yourself yet that there's a lot of stuff in the negative column and not a lot going on in the positive column. And for whatever reason, maybe from the sense of emotional safety, just wanting to stay the course versus rocking the boat, you're deciding to accept these like several dozen negative things for the sake of these less than half a dozen positive things that are keeping you invested in the relationship. And when it goes on for long enough, when it feels like there aren't other choices, a lot of people will just choose to stay in the unhealthy, less than happy relationship, because being slightly unfulfilled in a romantic relationship for some people is less scary than having none at all. One, we all need to know less about each other. Two, did the husband traditionally practice non-monogamy? I don't know. It did not come across like I'm practicing non-monogamy in the way that my ancestors did. Is not the vibe. Like he's literally just in like essentially a triad relationship. So I don't know about that. But yeah, it's a tough one. But yeah, that's the Lindy West situation, I guess, more or less. That's how it relates to polyamory. So yet more bad polyam representation, I am sorry to say. Boo-hoo, so sad. This is fascinating, a sad train wreck. There's more to it that I don't even know about yet, probably. Like I said, I was going to deep dive into this, and then I got one-shotted by anal discourse on Twitter, so that's what preoccupied my writing brain for the day. We have a question from Mr. Beansman. Any advice for dealing with the blues from friends slowly moving away from the community? Oh, that is a very good question. I'm sorry you're dealing with that. Totally makes sense that would be something that would make you upset because life moves on and people don't always stay with us or in our communities together forever. And yes. Also, apparently you can reply to people's super chats now. That's cool. Like in the YouTube stream comments. So you can do that if you want to. So as far as dealing with blues from people moving away from the community, I'm going to assume that this means you don't have another way to socialize with them, like the way that you knew them was through the community, and that you maybe weren't close enough, or they just, whatever reason, maybe don't want to maintain contact with people they know through kink, and so you're essentially just like losing relationships and losing friendships and, you know, acquaintances, and all that really sucks because social connections are important for humans and we enjoy having them, and it's naturally going to be painful to lose them. So the way that I would deal with this is, I think number one is like acknowledging the sadness and like reaffirming to yourself that it's okay to feel sad about this, even if maybe they're moving on to better things, right? Maybe they're going back to school, or they got a promotion at work and they're moving, or they're having a baby and so they're not going to be able to be in the community for a time. Like, especially if it's a happy thing, there can be guilt around like, ooh, I feel guilty that I'm sad they're leaving because look at what they're getting to do with their life, and, you know, why should I care so much if they're happy? But affirming to yourself that it's okay to feel sad, I think, is step number one. I think when you start to bury emotions or minimize them, or in general stuff them down, ignore them, discount them, say they're not real, you're going to have a harder time. So that has to be step number one. I think step two is not in a filling the void kind of way, but taking this as a reminder to appreciate the relationships that you do already have and the dynamics that are there. So spending time with friends you already have, or other communities that you're a part of, you know, reaching out to people and seeing how they're doing, you know, talking to people that maybe you haven't seen for a while and just saying like, hey, how are things going? You know, making time to socialize when you have time to socialize, and appreciating people for when they are around, because you can't always know that they're going to be around forever or not. And I think having the practice of building new social connections can help ease the pain of losing older ones, especially if you do have other people that you could also be spending time with. I think also just in general, spending time in community is probably a good thing to do. Like, again, focusing on like building those other attachment things, building connections to new people can also help too. And yeah, I think that's probably what I would do mostly. I think it's a really hard situation and there's not an easy answer for it, but that's more or less what my strategy is. Yeah. thinking what a great relationship there was with the Wonder Woman creator, his wife, and their cohabitant partner. They had a good life together. I have heard some like mixed things about that historically. I think obviously the movie Professor Marston and the Wonder Woman shows one perspective of that, but I think the dynamic, I mean, naturally, because it was, you know, it was way before a time where we had any resources for this at all whatsoever, so of course. But I think if you're gonna, you know, look to a movie or a piece of media for some positive representation for that type of relationship, that's not a half bad one. But I just think like maybe the real triad maybe wasn't as healthy as what it made it look like from the movie. Okay, what the fuck is up with my stream health today? I feel like every other time I look at it, it's like red for some reason, but then I'm also like, I have full bit rate at the same time, and I don't know what's causing that. I don't think I'm getting disconnected at all. I haven't seen that, like, just from scrolling over here, but I don't know, it must be weird. Alright, I'm gonna go back to the regular chat now, look at everyone's messages. Oh, it's doing the, here, let me refresh this, it's doing the thing where it's like, I don't know why it does that now with the like Q&A thing. But again, put your questions in the Q&A if you want to make sure I answer it. We have about 20 minutes left, so now is a fantastic time to ask a question if you've not already, because if you ask any later, I'm probably not going to be able to get to it. My only experience with polyamory was I dated a guy who was already with another woman who he had 2 children with, and I didn't know. Oh my god, you didn't know? He then tried to open up their relationship to add me into it. I say, quote, polyamory because I don't think that was true polyamory. He was just a cheater and wanted to find a way to keep us both. Oh my god, yeah. Like, you didn't know that he had 2 kids. Obviously, I think we can say that his wife didn't know. Or at least whoever he had kids with that he was still with, whether they were married or not. They probably were not aware of what was happening either. And then it's almost like he tried. Why do people think that this will work? Like, they're like, oh, honey, I want to open our marriage. It'll be so fun. Like, you can go have sex. I can go have sex. It'll be a great time for everyone. It'll all be good, happy fun. And it's like, oh, actually, funnily enough, I've already met a person that would be, like, fun for me to date. Like, almost every single time that happens, some form of cheating has already occurred for sure. Or at least lying and concealing the relationship of, like, how, like, when you met them, how well you know them. No. It's just ridiculous. And I almost, if they've read about polyamory, I can almost get why they would feel inclined to do that. And it's because, in reality, a lot more men have trouble finding, like, you know, especially when they're opening up a marriage. A lot more men they overestimate their sexual marketplace value, let's say. And they think, I'm going to get out on these apps, I'm going to find, you know, hot people to have sex with me, and it's going to be so easy. And my wife that doesn't want to fuck me anymore, she's going to be so mad. She's going to be so jealous. And then they're on the dating apps for like a month, and they have like 2 dates, and their wife has had like 10, and they're like, this wasn't supposed to go this way. No, I was supposed to get pussy, and then you were supposed to like maybe find the guy in like 6 months. No. And so maybe if he's read those stories, he's like, I know how to game the system. I'll make sure I already have somebody to date before I open the relationship, then she can't win. And then that's just like, all that's very fucked up and wrong, obviously. But that's, if you're a fucked up weird person and you're bad at relationships, I can see why you would think that. My goodness, I just happened to find this unicorn at the park one day. Who knew? She's really pretty and really good in her, at all the things. Yeah, she's really good at sucking she seems like a nice lady. It's very immature and ridiculous. Yeah. I only found out because I found baby clothes in his car. So he didn't even come clean? You found out? Oh my god, I'm so sorry. That's awful. That's like nightmare material. Oh my god, I haven't had that nightmare from that direction of like finding out I'm the other woman vis-a-vis finding, I don't know, an empty baby food jar or like baby clothes in his car and then him being like, oh, I actually have kids, I didn't tell you. You know, luckily when I've had people with kids in my life, they've been really upfront and honest about it, because if you ever go over to visit a person, it's usually pretty fucking obvious when they have kids. That's like, what do you do? Just like fuck in a parking lot? Like, what do you do? It's not great. But I have had the nightmare from the opposite direction of being like literal nightmare of like being polyamorous, finding out I'm pregnant, and then like partners going out and deciding now's the time to start dating 3 other new people at once, and like not being open and honest about it, or being sketchy with the details, or ignoring my needs. And like that's like actually a nightmare that I would not want to experience. And that's a tough one. That would, that's so bad. Like, I could have a little bit more respect, not much, but it would take it from like an F to a D-. If instead of lying about everything the whole time, they were like, okay, listen, I fucked up. You have every right to be mad at me about this, but I have kids and I didn't tell you and I should have and I'm sorry. Like, there's a way to have that where it's like, okay, at least you did come clean on your own, versus it being something that came out because somebody accidentally found something. Oh, thank you, Sean, for the 15-minute warning. Yes, we have 15 minutes left. If you have not asked a question, now is a great time. Oh my god, yeah. No, there can't be more. There cannot be more, Fairy Elvina. There cannot be more. Oh my god. He told me we need to talk, and when I came to see him, he walked out to my car with the pregnant girlfriend and their child. It was bad. Why did he have the pregnant girlfriend go with him? Why? To prove that she, like, whose idea was that? What the Oh god, what is going on there? The girlfriend was pregnant too. That's insane. That's so bad. Oh no. Oh no. Like, what did the girlfriend think was happening there? Was that her idea? Like, I could absolutely see it. Now that I've said it out loud, I could very much see it being her idea, as in a like, well, she needs to know that I exist and you've already been dishonest, so I need to meet her directly. Oh my god, she was 8 months pregnant with her second daughter. Oh my god, what is with men cheating on their heavily pregnant wives / girlfriends? Oh my fucking god. None of you have any of my respect. Straight to jail. Straight to jail with all of you. Oh my god. You need to be locked up. We need to... I was going to say something really bad, and I'm not going to say it. I'm going to say something very misinterest. You can just fill in the blanks on what that could have potentially meant. You can just Mad Libs what my suggestion for this problem was going to be. Wow. Useless. Utterly useless. Terrible. I really hope that situation did not last long, and I feel very, very bad for her, because I can pretty much guarantee that this was not a one-time only situation of treachery and lack of communication. Holy fuck. Oh my god, no. It's just insane. That's so bad. It's so bad. Oh, that's like a Reddit post. I feel like I've read that sort of thing on Reddit and been like, that can't be, that's a lie, that can't happen. LMO, I've been looking for 2 years for another partner. The hard part isn't getting to know people. It's trying to find a compatible person that's in alignment with my want, needs, and beliefs. Yeah, exactly. Like, if you just want to fuck around casually and you don't care about your values being aligned or being, like, super sexually compatible or, like, wanting the same type of polyamory, it's super easy just to, like, meet people and have a fun time for a little while. At least relatively speaking, right? Like, obviously, even that can still be hard. But if you are looking for long-term, concurrent, polyamorous relationship dynamics where you have similar values, similar life plans, similar fill in the blank things, similar sexual needs, similar kink, similar on and on and on. That does take oftentimes a very long time. Or you will end up with, at least in my experience, I've certainly been in positions where I'll go on maybe 4 to 6 dates with somebody, maybe not even like boyfriend, girlfriend material yet, or we'll get to the point of, we'll start to have the conversation about sex. And then that'll be the point where it's like, no, actually, this isn't going to work. Like going on, a couple dates was fun, or maybe dating for a couple months. I've had that happen too, where I've even maybe progressed into kind of dating territory with someone, and then it just like hasn't worked. Like, okay, maybe dating for two months. Maybe kind of around there, and then just being like, no, actually this isn't going to work out. Like, you clearly have not figured things out with your wife, or your marriage is falling apart and I don't want to be around that, or you aren't a great communicator, or wow, you really are just only in this for sex and I'm not, so this is not going to work. So on and so on and so on. It's very, very hard to find any long-term healthy relationship, monogamous or otherwise, let alone multiple concurrent ones with various people already having spouses or pre-existing relationships of some type. Yeah. It does get worse. I'm so sorry. But if you ever want a lot of karma on Reddit, definitely post the full story on there because, oh my God. Respecting my planet's implementation issues. You know what? You can't know for sure until you try it. I'm glad this happened a couple years ago and it's behind you. Because if this was a recent story, I'd be like, have you had therapy for that? Have you gotten to talk to anyone else? Because I think it would be very valid for that to be a traumatizing experience, if it was. But if you ever want to give us the full details, I'm sure we'll all be riveted to know how that played out. Next, you're gonna tell me he like owned the company you worked for, or like he also dated your sister in high school or something. I don't know. It turned out his pregnant girlfriend was also his first cousin. Like, I don't know. There's so many different ways that could get worse. Geez. All right, I'm gonna go back to the questions from the question box. We should have time for like a couple more. Let's see. What are good ways to have designated kinky time when there are physical capacity issues that arise, i.e. chronic pain, migraines, mobility issues, etc.? So the best way that I have seen to handle this is having some kind of visual chart scenario that you update as makes sense for whatever thing you're dealing with. So, for some people that could be weekly, especially if you live together, that could be daily. And you maybe have like a wheel, like, like the fire danger wheel, that you see when you're driving around like national forests and stuff, where it says like today's fire danger, and green is very, very low danger, blue is like kind of cautious, and then it's like yellow, orange, and red. Okay, you can have that same thing in even additional colors if you want to. Add a purple in there, add a white, add a black. How much you want to scale this from like a 1 to 5, a 1 to 10, whatever makes sense to your brain, whatever, you want to parse it down into. Having some kind of, especially a color-coded scale that's like some kind of chart or wheel or a number scale that you can like put a sticker on or put a magnet on like a fridge or something to indicate here's where my body is at today. And green could mean like no health stuff going on, feeling absolutely fucking fantastic, open to stuff happening, where red is I am not getting out of bed today. And anywhere on that spectrum, right? Again, depending on what makes sense for your conditions, your body. You could even, if you wanted to be super fancy, you could even do multiple different scales, where maybe you have like desire is one scale, physical status is a different scale, and then emotional status is a third scale. So then where you can go, okay, I have a lot of desire, but no fucking energy, and my emotions aren't great because it's fucking January and I haven't seen the sun in 4 months. And, or maybe it could be, I have medium desire, body is good, emotional well-being's pretty good. That seems like it's a good day to maybe plan something. And so it's less about having, I think, individual, like for sure on Friday, we're going to do something, and more about communicating day to day, week to week. Here's where I'm at right now. And then when you see those mutual moments of, hey, we're having a low chronic pain day, we have some time, let's see what we can make work today. And just keeping that awareness of when we see a day on the chart that makes sense to try something, let's try today to make time. Or like, you know, maybe if you're on a little bit of a longer time scale, maybe sometime in the next like couple of days, if it's something that doesn't change really rapidly for you. Let's take advantage of this opportunity we have right now. I know some people who use a 3-tier scale with custom battery charge emojis because stock emoji only have 2. Oh, yeah, I've seen that as well. Like the battery thing I've seen too, for sure. So I think that's probably the best system I know of, because it's very personalizable. You can both use it. It doesn't require a lot of like you don't have to verbally describe what's happening in your body in an exhaustive level of detail. You're just like literally like flipping moving something from here to there. Okay, so you're having me to say, well, my body today had problems with this, and this doesn't feel good, and I have an ache here, blah, blah, blah. You're just going to skip all over that. You can just go, little quick cheat sheet that you get to look at versus having to do the full conversation. This is such a good idea for mental illness, like depression and anxiety. Oh yeah, like this is something that applies honestly for probably everybody. It's just more useful when you're dealing with mental health and physical health stuff. But I would honestly, if that's an idea that you like, even if you're otherwise mentally and physically well person, if you're struggling to, make time for kink because of, your general attitude about life or time, this is a good reason to have a chart like this. Is you get to go, hey, we're both really in the mood. We both really have time. Let's make something happen. Let's make something happen. All right, do we have time for one more question? Who is it gonna be? Oh, it's doing the thing. Okay, let me refresh that again. This will probably make it so I'm not gonna be able to scroll, at all. Oh yeah, I've lost, everything in the chat. All right, if I have not answered your question yet, now is the time to re-ask it, because I can only see about the last 20 messages in the chat because I made the mistake of refreshing my chat. Yeah, it's just I can't scroll at all. They sell little badges where you can rotate between different colors, usually sold for autism conventions for verbalness, but you can adapt it to use as well. Oh, yeah, that's a good idea. I like that too. Something wearable. Yeah. Have to be part of your uniform as you just keep it on you at all times. That'd be cute. Inventing a business trip because he's tired of massaging your feet. Basically, yeah. Oh, my bitch pregnant girlfriend is always making me buy her food she likes and rubbing her feet. And it's oh my God, it's just a baby. It's not that big of a deal. Women do that all the time. You're not special. Stop acting like a princess. The fact that there are so many men that just viscerally resent their pregnant partners is baffling to me. Just utterly like, why did you do this? I know why this happened. It's because you didn't use protection, you didn't communicate, something happened. It was almost always a mistake on every level, and instead of doing what you should have been doing, which is taking precautions, you're now taking it out on the person that is subjecting you to this experience twice and doing it twice and doing it twice. Oh my god. Oh my god, there were other women and men he was sleeping with. I mean, he's doing this as a bisexual man. It's like, that's a new spin on it. Normally he's a straight guy. That's crazy. And you told me he tested positive for chlamydia on Valentine's Day. Oh my god. So he has a pregnant wife and he also has chlamydia. Oh my god. I missed that detail before. I'm glad I scrolled up in the chat because I missed that. Fucking, oh my god. What a dangerous, a truly dangerous individual. Was the pressure in the stream title part of being pressured into polyamory anal sphincter pressure? It was being pressured into polyamory and being pressured to like sex things. Oh, awesome! Yes, thank you. I did not see. But I am glad that you did mention again that you bought me the soap gum. Thank you. I'm super excited and also a little scared of trying it. That was terrible. Terrible stuff. Anyways, good thing good people exist in the world. All right, I will now summon the Bendita for goodbye. Bandita. Oh, you moved, sweetie. Did the camera freeze? People didn't see that Bandita moved. Look at that. She moved. Hi, you. How are you doing, sweetie pie? Hi, little girl. Hi, look at you. Do you want to say goodnight to the people? You want to say goodnight? Oh, hi. Look at your little paws. Did we have a nice walk today? It was very sunny outside, wasn't it? Very sunny. Hello, girl. Hi. My sleepy baby girl. So good. Hi, you. Alrighty. I think we're ready to head out for tonight, y'all. Thank you so much for being here with me. I really appreciate you all spending a little bit of your Friday night with me. We will not be streaming at this time next Friday because next Friday is Kink Fest. So I will most likely be going to a dungeon at this hour and or shoveling food in my mouth between getting ready and going to a dungeon. So thank you all so much. Stay safe, have fun. I will see you all again very soon. And drink your water, wear your sunscreen, and I'll see you later. Bye. Bye. I love you so much, sweetie. You're so fluffy. You're so fluffy, girl.